evening. So welcome. Thank you very much for participating this evening. At this time, would call to order and ask for the invocation by Pastor King. Nancy, if you would lead Pastor King.
Okay, Father God, we thank you as we come this evening for the first council meeting of the year for 2021, and we ask that you now guide us and bless us from the mayor, the city council, city officials, and those who wrestle with the issues of the Gahanna community. Bless now our convening together tonight, go through this pandemic again in 2021, and just celebration of the King holiday in our state and our world. We ask that you forgive us of our sins and iniquities and create us in all a clean heart. Bless us as we now conduct the businesses of this city, that we make this city a better city in 2021 for our residents, for our first responders, for our mayor, for our city council, for all those who make up this great city. In Jesus' name we pray tonight. Amen.
Amen. Nancy, you're on mute.
Okay. We'll do the pledge now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Reverend King, thank you very much for your invocation this evening, and Nancy for the pledge. Welcome, certainly, you to continue in our meeting here this evening. Also recognize if you have other activities and responsibilities, we understand that as well. With that, we'll move to hearing a visitor. We have 2 speaker slips this evening.
Did you want to do roll call?
Good call. Yes, please.
Angelou?
Here.
Bowers?
Here.
Eric?
Here.
Leesburg?
Here.
McGregor? Here. Renner?
Here.
Schnetzer?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. At this time, we'll move to hearing of visitors. I do have the 2 speakers. I don't have speaker slips, but I am aware of 2 speakers. Are there any others, April?
No, sir. Not for public hearing either.
Okay. Mr. or Mrs. Hoffman, whichever would like to go first.
Hello, can you hear?
Yes, it cut out for a second, but yes, we can hear you. And Ms. Hoffman, if you would give us your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes, please.
Thank you. Also tonight, my husband Carol asked that I take his 3 minutes. Is that acceptable to the council?
Yeah, I think that's fine. Thank you.
Or he can read the other half. We wrote a statement together. My name is Brenda R. Hoffman. I live at 279 High Meadow Drive, Gahanna, Ohio, 43230. Good evening, Council. As you're aware, I have shared with you an extremely disappointing letter of position that I feel is fraught with false statements. I'm addressing the false matters here tonight and partially going forward to the Council in a public forum to make sure that it's on the record. I want my side of the story and the corrections made available to all residents. Ultimately, this will all go away when I receive a written apology, and that apology is forwarded to the Federal Highway Administration. Well, this certainly happened at the end of Tom Nealon's watch. I'm not at all surprised that such a document failed to mention the refusal of a city code enforcement officer to take a complaint until I threatened that officer with equal protection under the law. I hold no malice towards our CEOs, as I believe sincerely that there was never and has never been a fully functional process. There have never been checks and balances on our code enforcement. We have not had true code enforcement leadership. Our next conversation with this council will discuss our findings of disparity and inconsistent enforcement that led to the event that I'm discussing in the letter. I'd like to invite others that have done business in the past with Gahanna to address their same experiences. For as long as we have lived here, this department has been purposefully understaffed in favor of voter candy. We have all had the fun, but no money for the requirements that were put into play for us in 1962. How in the heck are we supposed to move forward as a city when the best tool we have against urban blight has never really been cared for? How many more apartments and homes will you squeeze into a 12 square mile section with 1, 2, or 3 officers? We've never operated a real and true code enforcement, and because of that, a lot of discretion has led to problems like we've had that resulted in the letter in the first place. I think that there's been a lack of very clear, concise, and consistent information at every level of permitting and code enforcement. I also think that you should not be surprised to learn the city's response to me at the time when I had problems with my sidewalk and a neighbor that didn't want to meet up to ours, was that the city told me that I should just wait as the Frank Underwood home was up for sale, wait for the new resident to come in and then file a complaint. I was extremely upset by that because that puts another relationship with the neighbor in jeopardy. And Shane Ewald told me he wasn't surprised. Nothing happened. Furthermore, I don't see any mention in this letter of phone calls that were made to Rob Wendling's private residence or any of the return calls he made to me. There are no mentioning of him getting trees from me for the city of Gahanna at about the same time. There's no mention that Rob was stopped in the middle of Maybank Court talking to me about the cow repair in his truck in the fall of 2017. And if you have doubts about that, simply speak to Leonard Osborne, lives right down the street here. Leonard pulled up behind Rob's truck, stopped in Maybank, and started honking. And I yelled back, "Leonard, knock it off, it's Rob." So then Leonard gets out of his car and comes up and talks to Rob with me. Those two went to dental school together, so I'm sure Rob Wendling will remember. There's a lot of missing information in the city's position to the Federal Highway Administration, and some of it was purposefully wrong. I see no mention that information was requested in the presence of this council in the back conference room. I asked Jeff Barr for the information I needed about the trees. I openly asked this council for a report in front of the council, for a report I'd asked for 2 years prior. Supposedly, Jeff Barr called Rob Wendling at home and he never wrote it. But the funny thing is that when I called Rob at home, he was off getting his rotator cuff surgery done, and he relayed to his wife that he would get it to me. I didn't receive that information. I openly asked for that information during a talking meeting. I've asked for the census of trees in the area of the park where the new telephone tower went in, as I had hiked back there with waders on, and I know I identified 3 ironwood trees in that area. I was in that area looking for showy orchis. All of that was openly asked to Jeff Barr and Council, and yet it doesn't appear. It doesn't appear any of the questions or fact-finding that we did. We get the city's position, but the city left a lot of relevant information out. I see no mention in this letter that my husband told the code enforcement officers that the Underwood sidewalk looked like a blank damn roller coaster. I see no mention of Brian Reynolds telling us that the city doesn't enforce that. Dottie Franey told us on our visit here with Rob Priestess, the city does not enforce for slope, cross slope, or up and down. I do not see that the outside attorney mentions that I was told my brand new sidewalk was non-compliant. That is a damn lie. Eddie Moore of Eddie Moore Construction used my cell phone, spoke to the city of Gahanna, got transferred several times, talked to Rob Priestess, and was told that they weren't worried about it. Eddie was having fits because it was going to be a non-compliant sidewalk. We asked to leave that sidewalk open, and we were told we would be fined. Now, it's contraindicative to say that me as a resident would not cite my neighbor to pour a straight sidewalk if I knowingly wanted to not pour a straight sidewalk myself. Who calls in on a neighbor trying to get a tree out of the way to pour an ADA, ODOT compliant sidewalk when they themselves have a non-compliant sidewalk? This makes no sense. And I dare you to claim that this city ever cooperated with the roller coaster sidewalks. If you take a look over here on Hamilton Road in front of the old Max and Irma's and Wendy's, now you tell me, were we intending to have multi-purpose bicycle ramps and sidewalks poured simultaneously? Because if we were, Casco wins the prize. That's a real roller coaster. And Joseph Tree cut those out, and they ground those stumps, but they didn't get the ones under the sidewalk. And they poured it up and down all over. So I suggest John Moorhead weighs in on this and tells us how this worked. How was that compliant? That pour was allowed even when the city knew they had an ADA complaint filed against them. We have asked and begged for this city 4 times to weigh in on who's going to take responsibility for this sidewalk when it was poured wrong. We asked Dottie. Nope. We asked Rob. Nope. We asked Ron. No, or excuse me, Rob Priestess. Nope. Nobody wanted to take responsibility. But if you look at the Columbus Sidewalk Standard Drawing number 2300, that was what we were supposed to be used. That's what Eddie Moore told us we had to use. We tried to tell the city of Gahanna that even the newest code that was written was non-ADA compliant. We have asked to be part of this conversation. We have been cooperative. Yes, we get hot sometimes, but we were warned that it was not compliant, and we were warned, and we were shut down by Robert Priestess multiple times on multiple episodes that affect every resident in the city. That same guy was not even able to operate a level correctly, and if we have cocktails on the concrete this summer, you guys can come over and I will show you videos of your own zoning administrator and her inappropriate discussions with Frank Underwood when he lived here. And I can show you a video of Rob Priestess not being able to use a level. So since there's all this information done, I see no information of the names of the disabled people that were given to Tom Nealon or Robert Priestess also in that letter to the FHWA. And I think it's shameful. Thank you. Hello?
Nope, I have myself on mute. Thank you, Mrs. Hoffman. Appreciate your time and Carol's as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I need to
And
mute back. Can you mute me?
I can, or you can.
Okay. Will I hear from any of you about this?
I would say that's to the discretion of the members of council on any follow-up directly, individually. And then with regard to the agenda, that'll be a discussion of some sort.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Go ahead and mute me,
Thank
please.
you. Sure. No further speakers that I'm aware of. I'll move to public hearing. We have a public hearing plan scheduled this evening for ordinance 120-2020, an ordinance to amend the code of ordinances of Gahanna, amending section posting of property, publication notice of chapter 1133, zoning or rezoning. Does the administration have any statement or presentation for this evening?
Michael Blackford here. Just a brief statement. We've talked about this item a couple of times previously in our committee meetings. Our last meeting, there were a couple of clarification requests in order to make the code a little bit more easily understood by all. We have made those changes. I believe you've all been provided with a copy of that. If this request is approved, it would make all of our advertising requirements a city responsibility. This takes it out of the applicant's hands and again, makes it a city responsibility. And our fee schedule was recently updated to have those costs associated with the advertising passed on to the applicants. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Certainly, thank you. At this time, I will open the public hearing. As according to the rules of council, proponents will have 7 minutes. Opponents will have 10 minutes. And that's for any rebuttal. At this time, are there any proponents who would like to speak this evening? And April, are you aware of any discussions of any statements anyone would like to make?
No, sir.
Okay. Second call for any statements as proponents for the change.
I
Ms.
apologize,
D'Angelo.
Mr. Laird.
Yes, Mrs. Hoffman.
Yeah, I apologize. I am not certain if this applies, but I noted when I was reading the rewrite that there was no provision made for if the area had more than 40 adjacent or 50 adjacent homeowners, that we wouldn't write a letter, that the sign would go up, that the city would handle it. And I asked the question, what are you going to do when you have an owner that happens to be an out-of-state resident, owns property, maybe there's a house on it, maybe there's not. What do we do for people that aren't going to see that sign? And I never got a response. Thank you.
And Ms. Hoffman, if you would just quickly, I recognize your voice. If you could just state your name and address for the record, and then if you would please, are you in favor of the ordinance change, or are you a proponent of this change?
I am in favor of it with a question. That was
Perfect.
simply it. However you resolve the question is up to you. I just want to bring it to your attention. Carol and I owned a very sizable piece of property. We were out-of-state residents. We lived here in Ohio. Our very large property went through a zoning change. There was a sign put up. Because of the number of residents that were around the property, we never received notice of a change of zoning because we were out of state, and they decided to start using the sign system, which I think is a good system. But you might want to address those out-of-state people. That's all.
Certainly. I did hear that as a question, Mr. Blackford or Mayor. Within this time window, do you have any
Well,
response?
actually, all the advertising is handled by City Council office. The 50 resident, that's in there for all of the Planning Commission applications. I would have to defer to City Council's office on how they handle that. I mean, I know out of state is, an issue. But what kind of steps are taken, I would defer to April.
Okay, thank you. Any further proponents for the change? Karen, I see your hand.
Yes, I have my hand up
You're
because
unmuted.
I do have a question. Is that okay?
We can close the hearing and you can have all the time that you need once
Okay,
the
that's fine.
proponents and opponents.
That's fine, thank you.
If there are no further proponents, are there any opponents that wish to speak this evening? None appearing. I will close the hearing for proponents and opponents. And Mrs. Angelo, question that you have?
Yes, my question is there anything in the changes that could be a lawsuit? Potential lawsuit? It's just a question. I was going to ask it last week. Is Ray here?
Yes, I am. I mean, anything always has a potential lawsuit. I can say that, but
yeah, but I mean, is there anything that stands out that could lead to a lawsuit?
Sure. What I would say is that what we are changing it to is something that's commonly used in a lot of other jurisdictions. I have not seen any lawsuits related to this type of a posting before. I hope that answers what you're asking.
It absolutely does. Thank you, Ray.
Okay. Sure.
Brian, you're muted.
Mr. Leesburg, you have your hand up.
Yeah, to Ms. Hoffman's question, as somebody who has applied for zoning variances and those kind of things and changes of zoning in the city of Gahanna and other places, typically, at least the adjacent property owners are notified by we've got to turn in addresses and mailing labels and those kind of things, and that is still, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Blackford, a responsibility of the applicant to turn in adjacent owners, mailing labels and those kind of things. So at least the folks adjacent to would get notification. The folks, two lots over and 3 lots over that are out of state may not get it, and it may not obviously see the sign, but at least if folks directly impacted would be notified.
Mr. Leesburg, you are correct, and forgive me, I don't think I was very clear earlier. When the statement about the 50 or more, that's 50 or more contiguous property owners, which I don't believe is even a possibility, then there's not a direct requirement to send the adjacent property owners. But again, there is the adjacent property owners sent, there is the sign that's posted, there's the online, and there's also the newspaper as well. Yep, you are correct.
Council, any further questions with regard to this topic and ordinance? Thank you. Close the public hearing on ordinance 1202020. We do have an item on the agenda upcoming on this topic as an ordinance to move and vote upon. At this time, we are on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Hey, Brian, real quick, I see Nancy's hands up. I don't know.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't.
It was up, but it was really, Jamie made the same comment. I was trying to think of someplace in Gahanna that had 50 contiguous property owners, or more than 50. And that's why I was going to ask about that too. So Jamie answered. Or Michael did, whichever.
Thank you. Moving to the consent agenda, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So
So second by Leesburg.
Moved by Mr. Renner, seconded by Mr. Leesburg. Roll call.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Renner,
yes.
Leesburg,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Lyric,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Angelou.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Motion passes. I'm trying to check. April, is Reverend King still with us?
Yes, but muted.
I'm going to take a moment here this evening, and in this case, would ask for a vote on the resolution, and then I'll read the resolution. We have in front of us Resolution 000 number 1, 2021, a resolution to the City of Gahanna, Martin Luther King Day of Service, January 18th, 2021. Is there a motion to adopt?
I'll move to adopt. Mr. Lyric?
A motion moved by Mrs. Bowers, and seconded by Mr. Renner. Any discussion? None appearing. We'll ask for the roll call.
Bowers,
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
Lyric,
Yes.
Leesburg,
Yes.
McGregor.
You're mute,
You must
Nancy.
be muted.
Nancy muted.
Nancy, need your vote?
Yes,
You're
I'm
mute.
sorry.
Angelou.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Motion passes.
Mr. Stetzer said yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I think I might have got skipped on that one.
Oh, Mr. Schnetzer?
Mr. Stetzer looked like a yes.
Yes.
Did I skip
motion
somebody?
Passes. Michael.
Yeah, I got skipped. Not sure if my window
Well, I
fell
marked
out
you
of
as a
view or
yes,
something
so.
like that. Cool. We're good.
A resounding yes.
Sorry.
With that, I'd like to read in full the resolution. Resolution of the Council of the City of Gahanna to honor Martin Luther King Jr. Day in recognition of Martin Luther King Day of Service, January 18th, 2021. Whereas Martin Luther King Jr. Day is observed nationally on the third Monday of January to honor the birthday of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the civil rights activist who championed nonviolent and anti-poverty activism in the civil rights movement in the 1950s and 60s. And whereas Martin Luther King Jr. Day was enacted on November 2nd, 1983 by President Ronald Reagan's signing of the legislation introduced by Representative Katie B. Hall of Indiana. President Reagan in 1988 stated, "We're here today and to honor a man who dedicated his life to the pursuit of a dream. And honoring one man's commitment, we're also rededicating ourselves to the fundamental principle behind that dream. That is self-evident that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. Today, we still cherish these rights. The fight for genuine anniversary of the federally recognized holiday, and with the first observation of the holiday occurring on January 20th, 1986. And whereas the observation of Martin Luther King Day, Jr. Day, and the recognition of Reverend King remain important to American history, and our continued commitment and rededication to equality and opportunity is necessary today as always. And whereas the holiday is a day on, not a day off. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is the only federal holiday designated as a national day of service to encourage all Americans to improve their communities. As that we all have the drum major instinct. We, the members of City Council, recognize the many drum majors for service in our community and hereby express our gratitude to those who volunteer their time and talents to the betterment of Gahanna and neighboring communities. And whereas the legacy of Reverend year-round. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the City of Gahanna, County of Franklin, State of Ohio, Section 1, that this council does hereby recognize Martin Luther King Jr. Day of the year 2021, recognizes January 18, 2021 as the in the City of Gahanna. I want to thank Ms. Bowers for providing the language for that resolution. And again, the recognition of the work that continues for all of us. Move adoption. We have ordinance 120-2020, ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of Gahanna, Ohio, amending section 1133.02, posting of property, publication of notice of chapter 1133, zoning or rezoning. Before we ask for a motion, April, can you provide clarity to the amendment process that we need to do here?
There was a change in language based upon what I believe Ms. Bowers had discussed that clarified. Am I right on that, Mr. Blackford?
With regard to the 7-day was around what the discussion was, and it was the language was modified to, and not specifically 7 days, but to incorporate that concept.
I believe that was the change, yeah. So we've already had this introduced, so we have to amend it before we adopt.
Certainly. So what we'll do is I will ask for a motion to adopt the ordinance, and then would ask for a motion to amend by substitution. We'll vote the amendment, and then we'll vote the ordinance. So is there a motion to adopt ordinance 120? Thank you, Mr. Leesburg. Is there a second to adopt the ordinance?
Second, Renner.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Which would be the amendment by substitution.
I'll move to amend by substitution, although if you could give me just a couple minutes to get the language correct, I would appreciate it.
Certainly.
If Mr. Blackford or Mr. Malarski have that handy, it would be appreciated, or I can.
I
Melissa, I believe it is the last attachment.
Do you need the language? I have it in front of me. Do you need that?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
I believe.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I'll go ahead and read the changes. And if you in Legistar, it is the last attachment in the documents attached to this ordinance.
Thank you.
Yes. There were three words stricken, which is before approving or denying. That was changed to before considering the pending applicant, and then before it were removed. So it now reads before considering the pending application, and then it continues with the existing language until you get to the end of the paragraph. And the end of the paragraph is now written as follows. You shall be responsible for posting one zoning sign on each public street frontage for the property or properties subject to the rezoning application. Signs shall be posted a minimum of 14 days prior to the date of the Planning Commission meeting and shall remain in place until the conclusion of the final City Council action. For properties annexed into the city shall not be required to be posted only if proposed zoning is in accordance with section 1133.08a. The core of the discussion last week was around the language that is put in here that's with regard to shall remain in place until the conclusion of final City Council action.
I'll clarify that my motion to amend by substitution is to reflect the language that was just read by Council President Lyric.
Is there a
Second, Schnetzer.
We have an amendment to ordinance 120 on the table, moved by Mrs. Bowers, seconded by Mr. Schnetzer. Any discussion on the amendment? Roll call, please.
Bowers,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes. Yes.
Leesburg,
Yes.
McGregor. Yes. Renner,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Lyric.
Yes.
Thank you.
Roll call. Amendment passes. Any further discussion on the amended ordinance 120-2020? No further discussion. I'll call the roll for the amended ordinance, or the ordinance
Leesburg.
as amended.
Yes.
Renner,
Yes.
McGregor,
Yes.
Schnetzer,
Yes.
Angelou,
Yes.
Bowers,
Yes.
Lyric.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Now move to correspondence and action.
Thank
Madam
you.
Clerk, do you have anything?
I have nothing. Thank you.
Members of council? If there's nothing else, I do want to just point out that we did receive several communications from Mrs. Hoffman with regard to the code enforcement discussions that have been ongoing. And I think that is the only communications that I received here recently. Representatives, the Community Improvement Corporation, Mr. Leesburg.
And I apologize, I just got the CVB report. It is attached to the agenda. I'm not seeing it actually. April, did we receive a report?
With regard to the CIC?
I did not receive a report.
I'm sorry, the CIC met this morning. I'm sorry. That was already on CVB, sorry. Too many hats, Brian. CIC met this morning, and we will meet again in February, third Tuesday in February.
Thank you. Minnehaha Regional Planning Commission, Mrs. Angela.
The commission will be meeting in February for the first time for the year. That's all.
And now the Commission Visitors Bureau, Mr. Leesburg.
Yeah, I didn't see a report from the CVB. I know they're probably wrapping up from holiday lights and those kind of things, but I will have a report next month. Thank you.
Thank you. School Board, Mr. Schnetzer.
Nothing this evening. Thank you, Mr. President.
Official reports, Madam Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Attached to the council agenda tonight, first of all, thank you to Reverend King for participating in the council meeting this evening and for offering such a lovely invocation. I also appreciated the resolution that was offered by council. Councilwoman Bowers, thank you very much for providing that language. Also attached to the agenda tonight is a proclamation that I had offered as well. Again, had we been meeting in chambers tonight, I would have presented that in person, but it is affixed. I'm not going to read it, but it also echoes the sentiment of the resolution that was read earlier by Councilman Lyric, recognizing and honoring the legacy of Dr. King, his vision, his achievements in advancing equality, social justice, and opportunity for all. So that, again, is part of the agenda for tonight and is available to review up there. Martin Luther King Day is recognized as a day of service. I know it was our hope in anticipating this year that we would actually be able to offer a day of reflection and celebrate his day and offer a day of service around that. COVID got in the way, as it did with many things over the past year. So we will hopefully be able to do that next year. A day of service is something that Gahanna does so very well, and I think it would be befitting of our community to offer a celebration of his life in that way. Speaking of service, volunteerism, coming together, I'm going to segue roughly there. I'm sure all of you have seen the story of Cafe Creekside that has been in the news on all the TV stations. It's been in the newspaper as well. It's an amazing story of the love and support of our Gahanna community. Again, supporting Gahanna together, the way that our community steps forward and helps one another. It is my understanding in talking with them. I know I ordered carryout. I'm going to gain pounds. Councilman Renner and I were joking earlier that we're both gaining weight from trying to support all the businesses in the community. But I know, thank you, Councilman Leesburg, so I can go up. So I know that their carryout business has been crazy. They've been busier than ever. And again, amazing show of support from our community. I would also add that all of our businesses need our help right now. Hickory House and Gahanna Grill and Lola and Giuseppe's and 101 Beer Kitchen and Barrel and Boar and Nostalgia and Stadium, and the list goes on and on. Notwithstanding the opportunity to gain some weight, takeout, dine in, gift cards, delivery service, whatever you can do to help these businesses right now. If you are in a position to do so, I know they would all be very grateful for your help. If you were not able to attend last week virtually, our Gahanna, the Gahanna branch, the Columbus Metropolitan Library held a virtual meeting, which they unveiled for the very first time publicly their designs for the new Gahanna branch. They are absolutely beautiful. I believe it is still available online to watch the meeting if you were not able to tune in last week. I very much appreciated the invitation from Mr. Patrick Lazinski, the CEO of Columbus Metropolitan Library, to participate in the virtual meeting. Alas, our firewall works really, really well, I can assure you, because I was not able to connect to the platform that the library was using that night. So even though I had some remarks prepared about what exactly this rebuilding of this library branch means to our community, I was not able to participate in the meeting, but I think the comments will be posted online. And just, if anything, is an homage to the Board of Trustees for the Columbus Metropolitan Library for unpausing this project and moving it forward. And we are so very grateful that they see the value in investing in Gahanna and that they also understand the importance of that branch to our community. We have talked a lot about rebuilding, and that is a phrase that you're going to continue to hear me talk about over the next year. We are rebuilding everything. We're rebuilding our city hall. We're rebuilding internally, and we are rebuilding externally as well. And we'll be using the hashtag building community together throughout 2021. Kicking off the library branch and seeing the plans was a wonderful way to kick off 21 in this year of rebuilding. But a lot of times there's a lot of work happening in this city. Attached to also to the agenda tonight is my mayor's report. It's a 10-page report that details all of the work just done in the last 2 weeks by every department here in the city. When you get a chance to read it, if you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call at any time. That's what I'm here for, is to answer your questions. But we are doing a lot of work, and a lot of it cannot be seen from the outside. A lot of it is our internal rebuilding. We continue to rebuild our staff. We are evaluating every day. My directors, the directors here will tell you that I challenge them every day. And the question I ask them is, what are you going to do today better than what you did yesterday? Or what did you do yesterday that you're going to do better today? Every day we seek to look to what we can do better than we did the day before, and so on and so on. Because once we stop trying to improve how we're operating, then we might as well just roll up the carpet and forget what we're doing here. So we continue to build internally, rebuild internally, adding processes, evaluating how our current processes and policies are working, what needs to be tweaked, how it needs to be tweaked, so that we can ensure that we are operating the best way possible. And again, every department across the board has opportunities. I want to assure all of you on this call, both our council members as well as our residents, that is an ongoing effort and initiative from this administration, and we will continue to update you as we continue to move forward, because we do make changes every day here. And I think that is all that I have for right now, unless anybody has any questions, given some of the communications that have come forward. And if not, we will keep you updated as we progress.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Malarkey.
I think we need to change the agenda so I go before the mayor. How am I supposed to follow that? But I have nothing further to add today.
Thank
It's
you.
It's a Sunday pace on a Friday, right, Mayor?
Explain that one to Ray.
I'll explain offline.
With that, we'll move to council comment. Mrs. Angelo.
Well, I certainly hope that the prayer from Reverend King this evening met with everybody, our thoughts for 2021, let alone the birthday of Martin Luther King. So it was wonderful to have him represent his family. And I guess we need to be praying long and hard that we get vaccines for people to be able to get past this COVID-19, hopefully. And I'm going to say that it's going to be hopefully a short year this year where we can actually get out and do things the way we want to. So with that, I'll pass on to somebody else.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers.
Yes, thank you. First, thank you so much to Reverend King for offering the invocation, and to Vice Chair McGregor for extending the invitation to Reverend King. A couple things I wanted to reflect on tonight, in addition to recognizing a lot of the things that the mayor already brought up, which is the incredible commitment to service that we see in Gahanna and across Central Ohio on a daily basis. But I do want to recognize that tonight was a memorial service, a reflection of the over 400,000 Americans who have died, and the millions more who are currently fighting COVID-19. This has been